Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a review of the new Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam palette. I also purchased the Amrezy highlighter in collaboration with Anastasia Beverly Hills, and that video is probably already up, so if you want to go ahead and watch that before you watch this one, then please feel free to go ahead and do that. Today's look is pretty much going to be all focused on the eyes using this palette. It's going to be kind of a full-length review, comparison, trying to get a real sense of if this palette is worth having. So if you would like to see if this palette is any good, how it works, how it performs, then please keep on watching. So this palette was conceived, I think, right after the Prism palette was created, and it was supposed to be released a little bit later, but unfortunately some swatches and pictures of the actual inside were leaked. Trend Mood posted it as well. Trend Mood is an Instagram account that gives updates on new makeup launches, and once they posted it, it was all downhill from there. Norvina, who is the daughter of Claudia, who owns Anastasia Beverly Hills, was kind of upset about it, and she had a whole big launch planned for this palette, but instead decided to keep it a little bit more toned down and show a little bit of the swatches and stuff like that on her own Instagram. So the launch for this was on Valentine's Day in conjunction with the Anastasia Beverly Hills new bronzers that they released, and also the Amrezy highlighter. I didn't even know if this was going to go on sale on the website on that day because it wasn't really talked about too much. I had seen a couple of people use this palette, and I had obviously seen swatches of it on Trend Mood and also Anastasia's page, but I don't think anybody really got this in PR, and if they did, they didn't really talk about it. A lot of people doing tutorials on this on YouTube itself. So I think that this was a palette that kind of flew under the radar, which is very unfortunate because I feel like this is a very workable palette. So this retails for $42. It's not unlike any other Anastasia palette, and it contains 14 shadows. It does come with a brush. One is more of a flat, fluffy side, and the other one is a crease kind of fluffy blending brush. And it also has a mirror, which is standard for Anastasia's products. And as you can see, it's very neutral. It has a combination of kind of warmer toned shadows, but also is paired with a couple of cool tones. So when people saw this, they were kind of perplexed. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Subculture palette and the Prism palette were just very loud, exciting colors and very unique. Especially Prism, it was a palette that had a lot of shimmers in it, had a lot of interesting colors. I feel like a lot of people were kind of on the fence about the Soft Glam palette because it doesn't look like it's very unique. It looks like a lot of things that you could get on the market already. However, I will say that this is actually probably one of the most innovative palettes I've seen in a while. And the reason I'm going to say that is because once the Modern Renaissance palette came out, which is full of warm tone shadows, reds, oranges, deep browns, everybody was kind of copying that motif. I saw a lot of brands doing palettes that were all warm toned shadows, and then similarly with the looks that people were creating, they were all orange and red, and I was kind of going through the motions and seeing that either people were creating palettes that had way too many colors that weren't really workable on a day-to-day basis, or were so warm-toned that it just made everybody look orange. There weren't a lot of palettes that had cool tones in them, and there also weren't a lot of palettes that had neutral tones in them. If you were unaware, things that are considered warm are colors that have a red toned base to them, and then when you have your cool tones, it has more of a blue, almost gray base to them. And neutral tones are somewhere right in the middle, where they don't pull too red and they don't pull too blue, so they're right in the middle. Now, I'm the type of person that likes to experiment with colors, but I felt like I was always doing something warm, even unintentionally. So I was wondering, like, when is there going to be a palette out that I can just do a normal look? And this was kind of the answer to that. And also when you consider like the Prism palette and the Subculture palette even, those are palettes that I feel like people can't use on an everyday basis. Whereas the Subculture palette, I feel like you could use all those colors and create a really good look no matter your skill level. I feel like the Prism palette was kind of a weird, tricky palette to use. So I'm really happy that Anastasia did something for the average person. So that's my feelings on people saying that it's too boring. I actually feel like it's actually very innovative for the makeup community right now because none of us are really doing anything that is normal and wearable. A lot of us are kind of doing looks that are really creative, and even though that's great and I support that, I feel like after a certain point we kind of have to kind of be more serious and see which colors are actually going to work with us for our day-to-day basis. Also, Norvina said that the Soft Glam palette is now a reintroduction of kind of the modern Renaissance shadow formula. The Subculture palette was a very big disappointment in that the texture and the pigmentation and everything to do with the shadows was very different from the modern Renaissance formula. Everything in the modern Renaissance palette worked so well and had such a great consistency and such a good texture to it. It was easy to blend, it had great pigmentation, so people were like, why would you ruin a good thing? So Norvina did hear all those concerns, and so she went ahead and created a palette that kind of mimicked that same formula. Now, it's not as if every single color is going to perform the same, because different colors require different ingredients to be pressed differently and to work a little bit differently as well. What we have is that kind of good texture and good blendability and pigmentation with less fallout, hopefully more easy blending and less skipping. So I'm going to be looking at the back where it has all the ingredients and whatnot. The shelf life on this is 18 months. The shelf life for the Subculture palette is actually 6 months. And the Modern Renaissance palette is also 6 months. I definitely say that this is definitely a little bit more worth the money because these shadows are working a little bit longer than the other palettes are. You're gonna get a lot more use out of it, and it still has the same pan size and everything like that, so it's going to last as long as the other palettes will, but then some. You can continue using it, and the chemical formula isn't going to change as rapidly as it would for the other couple of palettes that Anastasia has. And also, each pan is 0.02 ounces each, and the eyeshadows are made in the USA, if that is something that is important to you. Which is why it's also cruelty-free, because products that are made and sold in China have to be tested on animals. I just want to address the elephant in the room. A lot of these colors are already in existence with Anastasia or have been in previous palettes. Off the bat, Tempera, which is the first shade here, that is in the Modern Renaissance palette, as is Burnt Orange, also Cypress Umber. And then there are a couple of colors that have also been with Anastasia for a long time. Orange Soda is one, Dusty Rose has been around for a while, Sienna definitely, and also Noir. That was kind of a pet peeve for some people because they saw that those colors already exist and they could just put that in their own little quad with the single shadows that they sell. So finally, I'm just going to peel this mirror off. Some ASMR for you guys. Yeah, we're just gonna get into the look. I'm going to do a halo eye with mostly the brown colors. I feel like that's a way for me to do a very natural wearable look that is a little bit more dramatic, but also using multiple colors, because when I do a halo eye, I do tend to use multiple colors, and it's a good way for me to test out the shimmer shadows as well. This includes, I think, 1, 2 satin colors, or 1, 2, 3 satin colors, and then 2 more shimmer shadows. So I do already have my eyes primed, also my eyebrows are all done, and we are just going to kind of get into the routine with all of my favorite eyeshadow brushes, and we're gonna see how this look goes. If there are colors that I don't use, I will swatch all those for you on my arm later on in the video. When I first started my channel, I would always do a brow bone highlight before I would start blending. So I think I'm going to actually go back to that method, and I'm just going to take the shade Tempera, and I'm going to put that on the brow bone just to see if this color is very similar to the way that the other Tempera performs. So already I'm noticing that it's a little bit more powdery than I thought it would be. Definitely more powdery than the Modern Renaissance palette is. It's almost like powdery and creamy at the same time. Consistency is very thick, I think I'll say that. So now I'm dipping into Orange Soda, and I'm just going to run that through the crease. It's very powdery, but it's not giving me a lot of fallout, which is really nice. So for a transition shade, this is kind of giving me a really good, like, soft amount of pigment, and it's not giving me any problems with blending. I do feel like I'm having to dip in a lot, though, to get the full effect and to make it spread out as make it spread out more. Next, I'm going to see if Burnt Orange is the same consistency as the Modern Renaissance palette. Very, 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 very powdery. I went with the brush just for reference. Yeah, it definitely is a lot more brown than I feel like Burnt Orange is, but once again, like sometimes your eyes play tricks on you when there's different colors surrounding a color, and it goes on a lot more orange than it looks like in the pan. So yeah, I think that this is the same formulation, the same color, but as far as how it's pressed, it's definitely very powdery. Burnt Orange is blending very well into orange soda. There's not any skipping, there's not any blending problems. Everything is being very seamless. So far I've had to blow on Burnt Orange like 3 times to kind of get all the powder to come off of it. I don't want it to mix into other shadows and kind of screw it up. Very similar to what I have to do with the Subculture palette quite often. We're just gonna keep on trucking. Next I'm going to go into Rustic, which is a very nice neutral, almost mocha colored brown. Yeah, that one's a little bit powdery as well. I'm going to put this in the center of my eye again. What I like is that this palette actually has browns. For the Modern Renaissance palette, the browns were very warm, so I'm really happy that there's more browns that I could work with. I am noticing that it's a little bit harder to blend out this color. When I put it down, it kind of just doesn't want to move too much. It's not terrible, but it is a little bit different than what I'm used to working with. So I'm just going to pick up Rustic again with a different brush and kind of place it down on the inner and outer third of my eye, just to start doing that halo look. I'm gonna go back in with Burnt Orange on the same blending brush I use and just see if I could try to blend this out a little bit better, because I'm still having trouble. So I don't know, I'm not really feeling the color Rustic. It's kind of giving me a couple of skips and is kind of just leaving sharp lines that I can't blend out. It's not blending as well as I thought it would. I'm gonna have to play around with it a little bit more, but we're just gonna keep on moving on with the colors. To go into the shade Sienna. So when I dipped into Sienna, it was also really powdery. So that color kind of helped to kind of blur the skips and the harsh lines that Rustic left, and it kind of also warmed up the look a little bit better. I felt like Rustic was pulling a little bit too cool and the other colors were a little bit too warm, so it was kind of looking very muddy, but Sienna really helped to kind of balance it out, and I think that's why we need a lot of neutral colors in our palettes, because it just helps so much to kind of help a look come together. Sienna is definitely a good color for me, and it's blending out just peachy. So finally I'm going to go into Cypress Umber just to see if the consistency is the same. So this one is very powdery, but if I do recall, Cypress Umber is also really powdery in the Modern Renaissance palette as well, so I'm not really going to complain on that part. The more that I'm using this palette, I'm kind of realizing that even though the pigment is there, it's just not as rich as I expected it to be, and I feel like these colors aren't being placed down as rich and deep as I am familiar with Anastasia shadows. I'm really into intense eye looks lately, so this isn't really doing it for me. I'm gonna go in a little bit with Noir right here and kind of see if I could blow out the lash line a little bit and make it a little bit deeper. Very powdery on Noir. It's a little bit powdery, and I just did a couple of dips into there. I'm gonna make sure that I tap off the excess just so that there's no issues. So now for the center of our halo, I'm gonna go in with bronze and take that on a flat brush and then spray it with a little bit of setting spray. I do this with all my shimmer shadows, so I wanted to give this color a fair shot. Okay. This is kind of a yellowy green gold, which I don't think a bronze metal looks like. The pigment on this color is crazy, especially when you wet it. So now with the other side, I'm gonna go in with Fairy, which is more of like a satin shadow. And I'm not going to take any setting spray on that because I think that this will just help to brighten up the look. Overall, I do like that there are satin shadows as opposed to more shimmers. I feel like having the nice density of mattes in this palette is definitely an A+ for me. I'm just taking a brush and cleaning up the edges. So I'm just going to do mascara and then lashes. For lashes today, I'm using the Wispies from Ardell. I use the Demi Wispies a lot and I love them, so I wanted to give the Wispies a try. And I had to cut off the ends with a knife because I don't have a scissor in my house. But I'm just going to put these on, and also I'll be returning with my face makeup on, and then we'll be right back. Alright, so I finished my face makeup. I did my lower lash line, and I put mascara on, lashes, the works. If you're concerned about the lighting, my lights batteries died. They run on batteries, so I wouldn't have had enough time to charge them, so I'm just going to wrap up some of my thoughts. For the lower lash line, I did use Noir, Cypress Umber, Sienna, and Burnt Orange to kind of smoke everything out. Also took a little bit of glistening and I put that on the inner lower lash line to kind of mimic the halo that we have up top. And overall, I'm very satisfied with the look. On the inner corner, I do have the Amrezy highlighter if you are curious. As promised, I will swatch some of the colors that I didn't use. The first one up is Dusty Rose, which is kind of like a mauve. That one has a lot of pigment, but it does look a little bit powdery, at least from my perspective. The next one is Rose Pink. This one is very buttery. Very, very, very pigmented. Then we have Sultry, which is a shimmer. And then Mulberry, which is a deep red, almost like red ochre. That's a beautiful color. That's probably the most pigmented one that I've swatched. Just because you guys didn't really see it, I am going to swatch glistening. And that one is very pigmented as well. So these are the other colors that I didn't use on my eyes swatched. Overall, I am very satisfied with the way that this look turned out. I think that this palette is definitely workable. It's not my favorite. I am not blown away. I am not stunned, and I definitely don't think that it's better than like my Jaclyn Hill palette or even the Modern Renaissance palette itself. I think that this could give people some troubles, but overall I do think that it is a good palette. I'd probably rate it a 7 out of 10. But that's just the way with some things. But I do think that it is a good palette, and I love the color story, and I think that it's just really nice and innovative for Anastasia Beverly Hills in such a color-saturated and warm-saturated environment. If you want to pick this up, you can, but I'm not recommending it 100%. Once again, I think that it's a good palette, but not an incredible palette. I was proud of Anastasia for turning out a palette like this, but overall, I just didn't feel like it performed the way that I wanted it to. I expected it to be similar to the Modern Renaissance palette, but it just wasn't. And for whatever reason, the pigmentation just wasn't there with a couple of the shadows. I won't say that any of those factors are bad or negatives. I just think that it could have been a little bit more like interesting. And that's that. That is my final review of the Soft Glam palette with Anastasia Beverly Hills. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I also hope you guys liked this review. I don't review a lot of products on my channel because I don't really buy too many products, so let me know if you do like reviews. I'll try to do more reviews in the future if I can afford it. If you haven't liked this video yet, please do. Also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and also follow me in all of my social media accounts. Most of them are Jess Murphy with an F, but a couple others are J Murphy Beauty because my name is so common that a lot of my handles are taken with my name. So, and yeah, I hope you liked this video, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!